The screen of Meera's phone illuminated her face in the darkness of her bedroom. 3:17 a.m., another sleepless night, while her husband was away on business. The notification that had jolted her awake wasn't a text from him, it was from her credit card. Company. Unusual spending activity detected. $4,152.36 at Four Seasons Resort, Bali. Her thumb hovered over the alert. There must be some mistake. Ryan was in Chicago, not Bali. She'd spoken to him just hours ago when he'd called from his hotel room, complaining about the frigid winds off Lake Michigan. Meera sat up, fully awake now. She opened her banking app, entered her password, and found 6 more charges from Indonesia. A dinner at a beachfront restaurant, a jewelry store, a luxury yacht rental. What the hell? She whispered to the empty room. She called Ryan. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. With trembling fingers, she opened Instagram and typed Four Seasons Bali into the search bar. The most recent posts appeared: tropical paradise, infinity pools, spectacular ocean views. She scrolled mindlessly until her finger froze on the screen. There he was, in the background of a stranger's selfie. Ryan, her husband of 9 years, lounging by a pool with his arm around a woman Meera had never seen before. The woman wore a diamond bracelet that glittered in the Balinese sun, a bracelet identical to one that had been charged to Meera's credit card just yesterday. 6 months earlier, Meera had been the one surprising Ryan. She'd come home early from a conference in Boston to celebrate their 9th anniversary. The house was quiet when she arrived, but Ryan's car was in the driveway. She found him in his home office, hastily closing his laptop when she entered. "You're back." He stood abruptly, knocking a stack of papers to the floor. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." Surprise. Meera smiled, though something about his reaction felt off. "I wanted to be home for our anniversary." He kissed her, but it felt mechanical. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes, he said. "Rain check on the celebration until dinner?" That night at the restaurant, Ryan seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly. When Meera asked about work, his answers were vague. "Just the usual stress. This new client in Chicago is demanding." Meera had met Ryan in her final year of law school. She was buried in casework at a coffee shop when he sat down at her table, the only open seat in the crowded cafe. He was 5 years older, confident, with an easy smile that made her forget about tort law. He worked in international finance, traveled often, made good money. After graduating, Meera joined a prestigious firm specializing in immigration law. They married 2 years later. For a while, they were happy. Ryan supported Meera's ambitions, celebrated her successes. They bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, talked about having children someday, though that day never seemed to arrive. The first signs of trouble emerged 3 years into their marriage. Ryan's trips grew more frequent, his calls less so. Meera found receipts for dinners and gifts she'd never received. When confronted, Ryan always had an explanation. Client dinners, a gift for his mother. Meera wanted to believe him. By their 7th anniversary, things had improved. Ryan was more present, more attentive. He surprised Meera with thoughtful gifts, weekend getaways. She thought they'd weathered the storm. Then came the Chicago client. For the past 8 months, Ryan had been flying to Illinois every few weeks. The trips lasted longer each time. He was harder to reach, citing endless meetings and time zone confusion, though Chicago was in the same time zone as their home in Boston. "How's the weather there?" Meera had asked during their last video call, 2 days ago. "Freezing," Ryan said, pulling the hotel robe tighter around his shoulders. "I can see the lake from my window." Completely iced over. Meera had looked up the weather in Chicago afterward. It was 52 degrees, unseasonably warm. Now, as she stared at her phone in the pre-dawn darkness, everything clicked into place. The late-night calls, the vague explanations, the credit card charges that never quite made sense, the Chicago client that she'd never been allowed to meet. Meera opened her laptop and checked their joint credit card statements from the past 6 months. There it was, a pattern of luxury purchases in various cities, none of them Chicago. Ryan had been covering his tracks well, but not perfectly. She logged into their cell phone account. Ryan's call history revealed regular calls to a number she didn't recognize. Meera wrote it down, then searched for the number online. It belonged to Elise Devereaux, age 29, a marketing executive from San Francisco. Social media revealed the rest. Elise's Instagram was filled with exotic locations, always carefully avoiding showing her travel companion. But in some photos, Meera could see a man's hand, a shoulder, the edge of a profile she knew better than her own. The locations matched the unexplained credit card charges perfectly. Meera printed everything. The credit card statements, the phone records, the Instagram posts. She organized them in a folder, building her case like the lawyer she was. The evidence was overwhelming. By morning, her shock had hardened into something else. Something cold and calculating. Ryan had stolen more than money from their joint accounts. He'd stolen years of her life. 7,000 miles away, Ryan Hughes woke to an empty bed and a pounding headache. The Balinese sun streamed through open curtains, illuminating a hotel room in disarray. He reached for Elise, finding only rumpled sheets. Elise? His voice was rough from too much champagne the night before. When she didn't answer, he sat up, wincing at the pain in his temples. Elise? The bathroom door was open, the room empty. Her suitcase was gone. So was her makeup bag, her clothes, her phone charger. An uneasy feeling crept up Ryan's spine as he grabbed his wallet from the nightstand. Empty. His credit cards, cash, even his driver's license, all gone. No, 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 he muttered, diving for his phone. It was still there, but when he tried to check his bank accounts, he discovered all his passwords had been changed. His emails showed multiple alerts, unusual activity on his accounts, large transfers to unknown recipients. Ryan called the front desk. His voice edged with panic. "Sir, we've been trying to reach you," the hotel manager said. "Your companion checked out early this morning. She said you would be staying another week and had authorized all charges to be moved to your personal credit card." "What?" "No. She stole my wallet, my cards. Sir, she had all the appropriate documentation. Your signature was on the authorization forms." Ryan hung up and frantically tried to call Elise. The call went straight to a disconnected number message. He tried again with the same result. His emails to her bounced back. The address no longer existed. With growing horror, Ryan realized he'd been played. The woman he thought he'd been building a future with had disappeared with everything. In a panic, he called the one person who might still help him. The call rang 4 times before Meera's voice, cool and distant, answered. "Ryan." What an unexpected surprise. "How's Chicago?" His blood went cold. "Meera, I can explain. Can you? Because I'm looking at some very interesting credit card charges from Bali at the moment. Funny, I didn't know Chicago had moved to Indonesia. Listen, something terrible has happened." "Yes, it has. Over and over again for months. Years, actually. Meera, please. I've been robbed. Elise, she took everything. My wallet, my cards. She's cleaned out our accounts." The silence on the other end stretched for so long that Ryan thought the call had dropped. "Our accounts?" Meera finally said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You mean the accounts you've been using to finance your affair? Those accounts?" "I need help," Ryan said, desperation making his voice crack. "I'm stranded. I don't have my passport, my wallet. That sounds like a problem for Elise to solve. She's gone. She set me up. This whole thing, she planned it from the beginning." Meera laughed, a sound without humor. "So you're telling me that your mistress robbed you blind and left you stranded in Bali? While you were using my credit cards to spoil her? I'll make this right, I swear. I just need you to help me get home, and then we can talk about everything." "Oh, we'll talk," Meera said. "I've already called a lawyer. We'll talk through them. As for getting home, figure it out, Ryan. You managed to get yourself to Bali on lies. I'm sure you can find your way back the same way." She hung up, leaving Ryan staring at his phone in the luxurious room he could no longer afford. Meanwhile, in a first-class cabin headed to an undisclosed location, Elise Devereaux, whose real name was neither Elise nor Devereaux, sipped champagne, and reviewed the offshore account transfers on her laptop. $500,000, give or take. Not her biggest score, but certainly her most enjoyable. Ryan Hughes had been so easy to manipulate, so eager to believe that a beautiful young woman was captivated by him. She'd met him at a finance conference in San Francisco, where she'd been working as a cocktail waitress, gathering information on potential targets. Ryan had practically fallen into her lap, flashing cash, mentioning his success, his unhappy marriage. He'd been practically begging to be conned. 10 months of careful work, building trust, manufacturing a fake life and career, creating a digital footprint that would vanish as quickly as it had appeared, making him fall in love with a woman who didn't exist. More champagne, Ms. Chen? The flight attendant asked. Yes, please, she replied, smiling as she closed her laptop. I'm celebrating. Ryan returned to Boston 3 days later, hollow-eyed and shaken. He'd had to contact the U.S. Embassy, file police reports that went nowhere, and ultimately borrow money from a business associate to get home. When he arrived at the house, his key no longer worked in the lock. He rang the doorbell, shifting nervously on the porch. When Meera opened the door, he barely recognized her. She'd cut her long, dark hair into a sharp bob and wore a crisp black suit he'd never seen before. Meera. You have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items, she said, stepping aside to let him enter. Anything else will need to be arranged through our lawyers. Ryan stepped into the foyer, noticing that many of his photos had already been removed from the walls. Can we please just talk about this? What happened with Elise is exactly what you deserve, Meera finished for him. 30 minutes, Ryan. I'll be timing you. He moved through the house in a daze, grabbing clothes and toiletries while Meera followed at a distance, arms crossed, expression impassive. Where am I supposed to go? He asked, zipping up his hastily packed suitcase. That's not my problem. But I imagine your savings will cover a nice extended stay hotel. Oh, wait! She smiled coldly. Your girlfriend emptied those accounts, didn't she? She wasn't my girlfriend. She was a con artist. And you were an easy mark because you were so busy trying to cheat on your wife. Meera leaned against the door frame. Do you know what I found most interesting? When I went through all our accounts, all our records, I discovered this wasn't your first affair. Just the most expensive one, Ryan paled. Meera, 7 years ago. That conference in Vancouver. 4 years ago, New York. 2 years ago, Miami. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was stupid? I never thought you were stupid. No, just trusting. Just devoted. Just conveniently blind to what you were doing. She checked her watch. 20 more minutes. Ryan abandoned his packing and faced her. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But this thing with Elise? I don't care about Elise. Meera's composure cracked for the first time. I care about 9 years of lies. I care about the future we planned that was never going to happen because you were too busy living a double life. I loved you, Ryan said quietly. I still do, Meera laughed bitterly. You loved having a wife at home while you played with your toys elsewhere. You loved the respectability I gave you. You loved that I was too busy building my career to notice what you were doing. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Meera stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Was it fair when I sat alone at my father's funeral because you were stuck in meetings? Was it fair when I miscarried our baby and you came home 3 days later? Was it fair when I supported your career moves, your ambitions, your dreams, while you were spending our money on other women? Ryan had no answer. 15 minutes left, Meera said, her composure returning. And Ryan? The police would like to speak with you about some questionable transfers from client accounts at your firm. It seems Elise wasn't the only one stealing. The blood drained from Ryan's face. What are you talking about? When I was gathering evidence of your affairs, I found some interesting transactions. Being a lawyer, I recognized them for what they were. Being a good citizen, I reported them to the appropriate authorities. You had no right. I had every right. Those were joint accounts you were using to launder money. That makes me complicit unless I report it, she smiled thinly. The DA is very understanding. I've been fully cooperative. You're trying to destroy me. No, Ryan. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure I don't go down with you. She checked her watch again. 12 minutes. He stared at her. This woman he thought he knew. This woman he had underestimated for years. What do you want from me? Nothing. Not anymore. The finality in her voice was absolute. The divorce papers are being prepared. You'll be served within the week. I've already frozen what assets remain. The house is in my name. You insisted on that for tax purposes, remember? How convenient. I'll fight this. With what? Your accounts are empty. Your reputation will be in shambles once the financial improprieties at your firm come to light. Your girlfriend took everything else. Meera shook her head. You always thought you were the clever one. The one with the angles. Look where it got you. Ryan finished packing in silence, the weight of his choices pressing down on him like a physical force. As he zipped the suitcase closed, his wedding ring caught the light. He twisted it off and placed it on the dresser. For what it's worth, I am sorry, he said. That's the problem with sorry, Meera replied. It only matters when it comes before the betrayal, not after you're caught. She gestured toward the door. Your time is up. She followed him downstairs, watching as he took one last look around the home they had shared. At the door, he turned. Did you ever really love me? He asked. Meera's eyes met his, clear and unflinching. Yes, that was my mistake. One I won't make again. She closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and finally allowed herself to cry, not for the man who had just left, but for the woman who had loved him, for the years spent in service to a lie, for the future she would now have to rebuild alone. 3 months later, Meera sat across from her lawyer, Diane, reviewing the final divorce settlement. He's agreed to everything, Diane said, sliding the papers across the table. No alimony, no claims on the house or your retirement accounts. Full admission of fault. He didn't have much choice, did he? Meera said, scanning the documents. Not really. Between the embezzlement charges and the evidence you gathered, he was in an untenable position. Diane removed her glasses. He's looking at 3 to 5 years, minimum. Meera signed the papers, feeling nothing but a dull relief that it was finally over. Have you heard anything more about the woman? Elise? Diane asked. No. The FBI agent I spoke with said she's done this before. She finds men who are already doing something illegal, embezzling, money laundering, tax fraud, and uses that as leverage. They can't report her without exposing themselves. Meera capped her pen. They have her operating under at least 5 different identities. She's very good at what she does. In a twisted way, she did you a favor. She exposed what I should have seen years ago, Meera agreed. But I don't think her motives were altruistic. That evening, Meera returned to the house. Her house now, unquestionably. She'd redecorated, removing every trace of Ryan. New furniture, new paint, new art on the walls. She'd turned his office into a yoga studio. Reclaiming the space had been therapeutic. As she prepared dinner, her phone chimed with an email notification. The sender was unfamiliar. echenuprotonmail.com. The subject line read simply, Closure. Curious. Meera opened it. Meera, you don't know me, but I know more about your husband than most people ever will. I'm sure you've pieced together what happened by now. What you probably don't know is why. 3 years ago, Ryan Hughes destroyed my sister's life. She worked at his firm, trusted him, followed his financial advice. She lost everything when he used her accounts for his schemes. When she threatened to expose him, he made sure she was fired, blacklisted, her reputation ruined. She took her own life 6 months later. I promised her I would make him pay. It took me years to position myself, to create the perfect trap. I didn't know about you until I was already deep into my plan. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you were collateral damage. I've attached documents proving Ryan's involvement in my sister's destruction. Use them or delete them, your choice. I won't be contacting you again, and this email address will be deactivated after sending. Your husband was not the first man I've taken down, but he will be the last. I'm retiring from this life. My sister can rest now, and so can I. Attached were dozens of emails, financial records, and a suicide note from a woman named Claire Chen. Dated 3 years earlier, Meera read everything twice, her hands shaking. The evidence was damning. Ryan hadn't just been embezzling recently. He'd been doing it for years, destroying lives along the way. Lives like Claire's, lives like Meera's. After careful consideration, Meera forwarded the documents to the FBI agent handling Ryan's case, then deleted the original email. 6 months later, on what would have been her 10th wedding anniversary, Meera stood on a beach in Santorini watching the sunset. She'd used her vacation time to travel alone, visiting places she'd always wanted to see. Her phone rang, Diane calling with news. "Ryan's been sentenced," her lawyer said without preamble. 7 years. The additional evidence you provided sealed it. "Thank you for letting me know," Meera said, feeling a chapter closed definitively. "How's Greece?" "Beautiful. Healing." Meera watched the sun sink into the Mediterranean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I'm thinking of staying a bit longer. You deserve it. Will you be checking your work emails? That big asylum case is coming up. I'll check in next week. Right now, I'm just focused on the sunset." After hanging up, Meera walked along the shoreline, feet sinking into the cool sand. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. The pain hadn't disappeared. Betrayal of that magnitude left scars that would never fully heal, but it had transformed into something else. Something that made her stronger, more discerning, more compassionate toward herself. As twilight deepened around her, Meera made a promise to the woman she had become. No more sacrificing her intuition on the altar of love. No more ignoring red flags. No more putting someone else's happiness before her own integrity. The waves washed over her feet, erasing her footprints behind her. Ahead lay only unmarked sand, waiting for new steps, new patterns, new destinations of her own choosing. In a maximum security prison outside Boston, Ryan Hughes sat on the edge of his narrow bed, staring at the single photograph he'd been allowed to keep. His wedding day, his arm around a smiling Meera. The man in that photo was unrecognizable to him now, entitled, arrogant, blind to the value of what he had. He'd lost everything. His freedom, his career, his reputation, the woman who had loved him despite his flaws, all sacrificed for the hollow thrill of deception, for the ego boost of conquest, for the illusion of being too clever to get caught. In another city, in another country, a woman who had once called herself Elise Devereaux placed flowers on a simple grave. "It's done, Claire," she whispered. "He'll never hurt anyone again." She left her sister's resting place and walked to a small cafe where a man waited for her. Not a mark, not a target, but someone who knew her real name, her real history, her real heart, someone she didn't have to lie to. "Ready?" he asked, taking her hand. Elise, Elena now, her birth name reclaimed, nodded. "Ready." As they walked away together, she didn't look back. The past had demanded its price, extracted its vengeance. Now only the future remained, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope it might contain something like peace. In 3 different corners of the world, 3 lives that had collided so catastrophically continued on their separate paths. One in confinement, one in rebirth, one in hard-won freedom. The price of paradise, it seemed, was different for everyone. But the currency was always the same, truth in all its brutal, necessary glory.
Story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.